Hello, I'm Barjo.
And I'm Hex.
And if anyone out there can hear us, we're in what's left of the ABC in Studio 21.
Yeah, we are low on everything. Food, water, and there's something outside.
Oh.
Please help!
Hello and welcome to Good Game and the end of the world as we know it. Sorry about the mess.
Yes, the apocalypse has finally happened, and just in time too, as this week we'll be celebrating the genre where your one objective is just to survive.
And survive we shall, hopefully, in our first play of Rust.
Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Nice pants.
Excuse me?
Also this week, Clementine continues her fight to stay alive in the second season of Telltale's The Walking Dead.
I'm still not bitten.
And we live out our apocalyptic dreams as we blast through hordes of zombies in Dead Nation Apocalypse Edition.
And Goose gears up and heads out to find out why we're so drawn to survival gaming. But before all that, can you name the game?
This is so itchy. But let's begin with our first play of Rust. Man, what is his purpose?
To gather.
To build.
To hunt.
To murder.
Why are you so violent? Leave me alone. Why did you do it? No, stop it. We're gonna get you. You better run with the silly hoodie.
Rust is an open-world survivalist game inspired by the likes of DayZ, Minecraft, and Stalker. It's crafting, PvP, survival, all in one unforgiving world where there are few rules.
It's been in early access for some time now and is improving with each update. Rust is brought to us by the team at Face Punch Studios, which includes Gary's mod creator, Gary Newman.
Rust is already a bit of a success story. It was released in December last year and already has a huge following.
Hi there.
It's a great example of the public endorsing something they want because they believe in its concept. And much like DayZ, Rust turns people into storytellers. Death is permanent, life is fleeting, and your survival truly depends on those around you.
I've hit him like 3 times.
It's a nudie.
Yes, alone you are dead on legs. Upon spawning in this world, your initial goals are based around crafting some tools and a home. Smash some wood, smash some rocks, build better tools, build a house, and rest. Well, that is unless you spawn in front of someone, in which case it's run or rock fight.
Rock fighting as a fresh spawn is so pointless though. It's just two guys wasting time.
I know, but I can't just run away.
Yeah, me neither.
It's the principle of the thing. Yeah, you think you can take me? Let's rock it out, bro.
It's always hilarious and pathetic watching someone flee from a fight. If you manage to escape rock battles, your hunger starts to kick in. This will eventually kill you if you don't find some food, but if you make the mistake of eating raw chicken without cooking it like I did.
Oh, damn. I ate it by accident instead of putting it on the campfire. Oh.
Then the panic will set in as you frantically try to find more food and get it cooked in time before you expire.
Why hasn't it cooked yet? I'm dying.
Aside from self-inflicted food poisoning, you'll have to avoid radiation.
There are a lot of bears in this radiation zone I'm in.
And keep warm and sheltered to survive the night. And that's about as punishing as the elements get right now. The real danger is in the wildlife, including humans. Barger, there is just something so terrifying about seeing a half-naked dude running towards you with a rock and cold bloody murder in his eyes.
Yeah, it's even more scary when you turn the sensor settings off.
You're so naked. Oh dear.
A truly naked player literally looks like they have nothing to lose. I'm not sure how many digital willies we can show on ABC2, so we didn't leave that up for long.
Regardless, I think Rust wins the award for most digital willies of the year in a video game.
Yeah. Congratulations to Rust. What I find interesting about this game is the psychology of the groups and tribes. There's a real pack mentality to Rust that we're only scratching the surface of.
Yeah, I think this game requires a lot more hours than we've had time to sink to really become efficient at surviving the elements and, you know, dealing with other players.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was my friend! Why did you do it? He wasn't really.
It is hard making friends, but I got pretty lucky on my first session because I found a tribe who took me in. They gave me clothes and weapons, and we all went hunting together.
Is it a waste of ammo to shoot a chicken with a shotgun?
No.
No.
I really felt like the new member of the gang. I didn't know what I was doing. I was fumbling with weapons and inventory, and there was so much mistrust there, like I was a loaded cannon just waiting to go off.
So if I fired my gun right now, things would get quite intense, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Yes. Oh god.
Well, you really can't trust anyone in Rust. Especially this guy.
Dilla, I may have shot you accidentally.
That's it.
And it's because there's plenty at stake with a possible breach of your house. You can secure a house with a door and assign a unique PIN number so that no one else can get in unless they have the code, but we've heard many stories of betrayal. It's interesting what goals you set for yourself and your team in Rust. Playing solo, you just want help and to help out others.
Hey, buddy.
Guys are bow killing fresh spawns over there. Careful.
Oh, really? Okay, thanks.
But all too often, things get violent before they start to improve.
Oh, dear.
I love how much people are running away from stuff in this game.
This bastard's chasing these guys.
You'll just be standing there and you'll see someone screaming and running, being chased by a bear or a wolf or another player.
Hello.
Don't kill me!
Yeah, your field of view is really small, which is a good thing because it allows you to sneak up on people and it increases that sense of just paranoia. But it also means that death is only ever 90 degrees away. I do love the idea of having your own house, but a wooden door on your first hut won't keep you alive for long. You really need a metal one to keep intruders out. I like that a hut becomes a true home that you protect and stock up for the hard times ahead.
Yeah, and there's real strategy to designing a house too. From rooms designed simply to trap unsuspecting survivors who wander in, to ideas about how to keep loot safe. Coming home to a burgled house is not a good feeling.
I like that you can see through the cracks of houses too. And when you hear gunshots outside, it's actually quite terrifying.
Oh, what's going on out there?
People are dying.
Knowing someone is stalking your house but unable to get in. For now.
Right now, there is a fair bit of hacking, and also servers do get wiped pretty regularly because all the big structures tend to lag them up.
Yeah, there are some ways to reduce lag, but really it just needs to be optimized properly, and I'm sure it will be eventually.
I do hope they include some more character customization options though.
Yeah, that same model of that half-naked guy everywhere is just a bit creepy, isn't it?
Nice pants.
Stepping back from this game and just looking at it, it's kind of a weird experiment, isn't it? Kind of Lord of the Flies. Someone has built this world, filled it with animals, placed some random chest, and then placed man, given him a rock, and see what he will do.
This is one of the weirdest things I've seen in a game before.
I do want to play more of this Barjo and explore more of the crafting and house construction options, if I can stay alive long enough.
Yes, Rust kind of feels like a prison for the worst PvP trolls of the internet.
Why, hello. Oh,
I
dear.
want your pen. Give it to me.
There's a lot more to this game than the simple, rough visual show. It's about communities working together and fighting with each other on servers. You get to know different people, who raided who, and it's up to you to choose how you decide to live in this world.
Well, now hopefully you've got Goose to do the news for us, but I don't know where Goose is. Goose?
Goose? Goose!
Thanks, guys. Well, end of the world or not, here's the news. Developer Naughty Dog has been hit by a string of high-profile staff departures. Most recently, Nate Wells, who worked as lead artist on The Last of Us, confirmed his move to Giant Sparrow, the indie studio behind Unfinished Swan. Naughty Dog's upcoming Uncharted 4 has also been impacted, with both the game director Justin Richmond and creative director Amy Hennig leaving in March. And in other staff departure news, Marty O'Donnell, the composer behind the Halo series and the upcoming Destiny, claims he was unfairly dismissed by Bungie. The only word from the studio was to confirm his departure and wish him luck for the future. O'Donnell had worked at Bungie since 2000, creating the very memorable and award-winning Halo score, as well as producing soundtracks for games such as Myth and Oni. a Kickstarter campaign for the game Jet Getters has been cancelled by developer TinyBuild despite recently achieving its funding goal. The studio has explained that it managed to secure funding independent of the Kickstarter, causing a restructure of the project and a delay into 2015. All crowdfunders will receive refunds of their pledges, as well as additional access to a digital collection of TinyBuild's games that includes No Time to Explain. Well, that's all from here at the Good Game News Desk, bringing you the latest news come rain, hail, shine, or end of the world. I can't even see in these. Oh, that's much better.
Thanks, Goose. If there's one thing that a zombie apocalypse is good for, it's getting the chance to shoot stuff up. And that's what you'll be doing a lot of in the twin stick shooting of Dead Nation Apocalypse Edition.
It's been more than a year since the outbreak. It took from me everyone I loved.
Dead Nation was originally released for PSN way back in 2010, but now it's received a next/current gen, slightly improved, special, higher def, remastered re-release, plus DLC for the PS4.
In the campaign, you can play either solo or co-op as Jack McReady or Scarlet Blake, as they try to survive through the most cliched zombie apocalypse story ever.
If you get bitten, you become one of them. But not me.
Basically, you're immune to the virus for some reason, so you have to go to a medical facility to try and save humanity with your specialness.
Yeah, it's hardly the most original plot, but I think it's knowingly B-grade and it does the job for this kind of experience. Also, props to them for writing and voicing both the male and female leads for what is essentially an arcade game.
The combat is pretty standard but satisfying twin stick shooting stuff. Aim with one stick, move with another, and shoot everything that moves. There's also a melee whack, and a quick dash move to help you out of sticky situations.
I did like how quickly things can escalate into those sticky situations. 1 second it's all clear, and then before you know it, hordes of very agitated zombies have surrounded you.
Yeah, it's never a big surprise, but it keeps you on your toes. And the fact that everything is so dark helps feed that paranoia that there's a bunch of hungry zombies always lurking somewhere.
There's also a decent, if predictable, assortment of enemies to fight. You've got fat, explodey zombies, screamy zombies that spawn in even more zombies, big leapy zombies, and of course lots and lots of normal dumb zombie-type zombies.
Every kill you make and stash of loot you find will give you gold, which you then use to buy and upgrade weapons in between sections. And I like the steady pace to the upgrades.
Yeah, pretty much at every checkpoint you'll have enough gold to bump up a few stats or buy a new weapon.
You'll also be chaining up multiplier points, which are key to chasing high scores and climbing the leaderboards. But for every bit of damage you take, you lose a chunk of your multiplier.
And death sets you back to 0, so getting those high scores is no mean feat.
They're good leaderboards though, aren't they? I like the metagame, which splits players apart by nation and then counts every kill in each country. Then every time a country wipes out its share of zombies, it clears one virus cycle, which is basically just a point on the leaderboard.
Yeah, and it's a fun way to use their stats to essentially create a zombie-killing World Cup, if you will. Plus, it's hypnotic watching zombie death tolls updating in real time.
I thought there was a pretty good range of weapons too. You have your go-to rifle with infinite ammo to fall back on at any time, but you unlock a range of more powerful, limited ammo weapons to help you out as well.
The SMG is great for crowd control, the shotty is as reliable a zombie deterrent as ever.
But nothing can stand in the way of the fiery destruction of the flamethrower. Toasty! But if that wasn't enough, you can also round out your arsenal with a range of throwable weapons like grenades, flares, and Molotovs for when things get desperate.
Yes, and it's always fun to combine those with the many exploding parts of the environment for maximum effect. There are a few different modes outside of the campaign, but the most interesting is probably Broadcast Plus, which lets you broadcast a campaign run-through. Except viewers can regularly vote between either helping you or making life harder for you. Which of course they always do.
What a great idea though, to let people watch and interact with your game as you play it. I hope more games try this sort of thing in the future, because it's a whole new kind of Twitch streaming interaction multiplayer kind of thing. What's your final thoughts, Hex?
Well, I think it's a solid twin stick shooter. It's nothing amazing, but as far as hectic zombie slaying action goes, it's pretty good. I'm giving it 7.5.
I think it's best on the couch with a friend. I'm giving it 7.5 as well.
Arthur, I can't believe you found chicken.
Actually, it's goose. No, not our goose. He's off to find out just why we like survival games so much. I grant you, it is a bit hairy though. I did drop it on the floor. A couple times.
For the longest time now, the simple act of staying alive has been at the core of the video game experience. This concept has now evolved to the point where we're playing entire games solely dedicated to the act of surviving against the odds. And it's become a hugely innovative and popular genre in and of itself, survival gaming.
So why do these games fascinate us? And how do we explain that when we're offered a whole multitude of different worlds to escape to, we're so drawn to the end of this one? More often than not, survival and the apocalypse tend to go hand in hand. That's not to say you can't have one without the other. For instance, Minecraft is often acknowledged as one of the games responsible for launching this latest wave of survival simulators. But at no point is there ever any mention of a story, a setting, time period, let alone the end of the world, just an endless wilderness left for us to explore. And on its own, the wilderness has been shown to be a more than powerful enough force for players to reckon with. Last year's reboot of Tomb Raider showed us that the elements can often be far more terrifying than any enemy type the game might choose to throw at us. But when it comes to bringing out the true survivalist in gamers, it certainly helps if the world is literally crumbling down around them. The Last of Us showed us that the end of the world can not only be the start of an amazing adventure, but also a stunningly beautiful video game location. In terms of gameplay, an apocalyptic world instantly grants the player permission to act on a far more primal level. And with so few laws and rules, player behaviour in these worlds can be drastically different from anything set within a normal functioning society. One of the ways these games promote such instinctual behaviour is often by isolating the player from the very beginning, leaving them feeling powerless, helpless, and alone. Starting the player out with little to no equipment, gear, or in the case of the sandbox survivor Rust, barely any clothing, survival games can quickly outline their goals and objectives, not through lengthy exposition and dialogue, but instead through what limited abilities or resources are available to the player from the beginning. Stripping a character bare also allows us to completely inhabit our survivors. The absence of any present skills, powers, or weapons creates a distinctly more personal connection, and as a result, you feel more invested in the well-being of the character and therefore will try harder to keep them alive. One of the most common ways of keeping your player alive is by learning to craft items along the way. As well as creating vital gear essential for survival, crafting also teaches in-game skills that we can reuse later on, simulating the satisfaction of learning a real-world survival skill. And as these lessons are usually self-taught, they can feel far more rewarding than simply following an on-screen prompt. When it comes to the act of travelling in survival games, it's usually long and drawn out, and covering such long distances between landmarks, often on foot, makes discovery of any sort of building or structure a surprisingly thrilling experience. Approaching any form of civilization in survival games can be very dangerous, as they usually serve as magnets for other players who are just as desperate as you might be. However, it's this very curiosity that these games rely on to create their drama and conflict. With only so much that can be obtained from nature's bounty, the temptation of better gear inside is often far too strong to resist. Trading the vast openness of the outdoors for the dark claustrophobia of the indoors is a risk that survival games regularly ask of their players, usually transitioning the game from just survival into the more traditional survival horror genre. In these situations, the fear of being alone is replaced with the fear that you may not be alone. This uneasy feeling tends to grow as players nervously gather up resources, forage for gear, all the while becoming more and more committed to keeping their survivor alive. And after so long alone in the virtual wilderness, this can start to take its toll, leading players to make rash decisions when they do finally spot someone else out there. Traditional games like to draw a clear line between friends and foes, but characters you may meet in a survival game tend to blur this line, whether they mean to or not. Placing such a strong emphasis on survival often leads to desperation, which can lead to unpredictability, which inevitably leads to danger. But like many mechanics at work in the survival genre, when things do unexpectedly go well, we the player are all the more satisfied, relieved, and grateful. This is no doubt why so many small, simple tasks feel all the more rewarding in a survival setting. Things like bandaging your wounds to keep them from becoming infected, filtering clean drinking water so as not to become sick, getting some much needed shut-eye from time to time, or even just trying to keep your sanity in check. The runaway success of DayZ was in no small part thanks to its highly detailed micromanaging of even the most trivial of survival requirements, right down to blood tests and even antibiotics.
There's just something incredibly grounding about performing such rudimentary tasks in a video game. These basic human needs are far more relatable than any explosive action or superpowers we've experienced in a game before, and therefore we create a far stronger bond with our virtual survivors.
This can be an incredibly immersive and wonderful experience when everything is going well. However, it can just as easily become a horrible, stressful nightmare when it all eventually begins to fall apart. Because no matter how safe you may think you are, survival games will rarely allow you much time to become comfortable or complacent, as there's always an ever-present risk or danger. Very rarely is much explanation required when it comes to adding these extra threats to an already threatening environment. Bandits and thieves naturally slot into a broken down society and create fear out of a lack of morality and mercy. While mutants and monsters spawn from radioactive fallout or highly infectious disease that all play into a broken world. But all of these apocalyptic antagonists pale in comparison to the real stars of the survival genre. Zombies. The perfect accompaniment to the end of the world, these wandering walkers provide the ultimate in extra motivation within a survival setting. Along with often being credited for the destruction of the world in the first place, zombies act as a sort of slow-burning catalyst that provide an ever-present threat to the player. Their endless, unstoppable nature wears down survivors, constantly putting pressure on the situation, and eventually tearing groups of survivors apart from the inside before tearing them apart for their insides. After surviving long enough in these worlds, it becomes apparent that most survival games rarely have a happy ending in sight. With permadeath becoming the ever popular choice these days, your time with many survival games will often depend on how strong, smart, and most importantly, ruthless you can make your character. The virtual loss of permadeath is one of the largest threats made possible in the world of video games, and therefore is perfectly suited to a genre that relies on summoning such raw instincts and brutal emotions from its players. Ultimately, everything that can be found, traded, crafted, or stolen adds more value to our virtual existence, and it's the fear that it can all be lost in an instant which promotes that heightened, nervous energy that keeps us coming back for more.
So, as long as developers continue to experiment fiercely to create the genre-defining hit, and as long as we as humans remain curious about our own mortality, then survival games will only grow in popularity as the perfect simulator for this dark fascination that we all share.
Thanks, Goose. With a reputation of fine storytelling to uphold, Telltale Games are back with the second season of The Walking Dead, an episodic graphic adventure. 2 episodes have been released so far, so we scrambled around for whatever we could find to defend ourselves against the walkers once more.
My husband is still out there! Get the gun!
Season 2 picks up not long after where the first season left off, and the game will remember your choices from your previous save file if you played the first season on the same platform. Otherwise, there's a previously on to get you caught up, and it will randomly select your decision history for you.
Clementine, a little help here.
You take the role of Clementine, who after the events of Series 1 has been taken under the wing of a friendly couple, Omid and his pregnant wife, Krista. It's survival as usual, and it's reassuring to find young Clem in the hands of good people.
Be careful and make sure to keep track of your things.
Naturally, things don't stay rosy for very long, and soon Clem is on her own again, left to fend for herself. These games have a story focus, so the majority of gameplay revolves around dialogue options.
Help me, and I won't tell him.
But there are a few objects to find and actions you'll be performing yourself in each scene. Personally, I found playing as a child in this landscape really amplifies the horrifying events that play out. And it raises the stakes. You immediately feel protective of her.
She is remarkably tough given what she's already gone through and continues to endure. But some of the actions that play out are quite gruesome and shocking. I don't know, do you think an 11-year-old is capable of stuff like that? I mean, she had some action hero moments that I found a little unbelievable.
It's adult stuff, that's for sure. I think what they're trying to do is push those boundaries by putting this character in those situations. She's learned a lot from her experiences, which is why she's still alive.
The repetition involved in some of the more violent actions did feel a little gratuitous to me at times, though. How many times did she have to ram that hammer into the zombie's skull before it's dead?
Well, I think that's just her little 11-year-old arms, which aren't strong enough to take out a zombie in one hit.
Fair point.
I do see what you're saying, though. She is unusually savvy and mature for someone of her age, much more than the survivors around her at times.
You can't just sit here and die.
Why not? What does it matter?
You still have Luke and everyone else. They're family.
Still, I will say it was a fresh change of perspective, having to make some intense judgment calls from the point of view of a child.
Still pretty sharp.
Of course, making her way through the landscape and dealing with walkers is tougher for a girl so young. But what's so brilliant about the Walking Dead universe is that it's rarely the zombies that are your greatest threat.
Yes, and this is where that element of branching story and play decision really shines. And I was really impressed with all the scenarios that Telltale threw at us in this new season. Clem will encounter numerous groups of survivors, and it's interesting how they played with the dynamic of these relationships around her.
We make decisions as a group, and you're wearing out your welcome.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I often found that some characters saw her as less of a threat because of her age, but others were immediately suspicious of her because they figured, well, how did she survive for this long?
She's also quite small, so she creeps around a fair bit, and naturally, she overhears things.
Just need to have this baby.
Yeah, that's a pretty tacky plot driver, though. People only ever talk out loud, revealing juicy secrets about themselves in cheesy soap operas. I do agree that the storytelling on the whole, though, is brilliant. There is an incredible sense of tension that maintains throughout both episodes. It seems as though Clem's role is to try and keep everyone at a simmer.
Clementine should stay here. She's what?
Well, at least that's how I played her anyway. I made alliances where I could, and I tried to help defuse situations so that everyone would get along.
Leaving us again. I know where the river is.
And every choice you make is crucial, because no matter what you choose, they'll remember that.
He wasn't gonna do anything.
I know what I saw.
It's high-stakes choose-your-own-adventure gaming, and some of the choices you make will effectively see if people live or die.
Well, I think that Telltale have really looked at the kind of decision-making elements from the first game that were successful and exciting and really ramped them up for Season 2, particularly in the narrative structure. It builds really nicely from a slower start in Episode 1 to some serious tension in Episode 2 that left me desperately hanging out for the next installment. And that's an achievement.
Yeah, I agree, and I love that we're still getting to know these characters too. Everyone has secrets, backstories, and mysteries to them. And it's only through Clem's keen diplomacy and inquisitive nature that you'll start to figure each of them out. So should we score this, Hex?
Well, I think we can score these first 2 episodes with our usual caveat that our scores may change once we've played through the entire season. Personally, I'm hooked so far. I struggled a bit with the plausibility of the kinds of actions and decisions of this little girl, but I guess she's had to grow up fast. And in the end, I think it was justified in the way it changed the experience for me as a player and just watching other characters react to her self-assuredness. So I'm giving it 8.5.
I really enjoyed this. I loved how every character has their own agenda, but you can never make everyone happy. And I loved how quickly I cared about all of these characters, which is a pretty rare thing. So I'm going to give this 9 out of 10.
So did you name the game for this week? It was Zombie Zombie, released in 1984. Available only on the ZX Spectrum, Zombie Zombie saw you ridding the city of its undead infestation armed with only an air cannon. Zombie Zombie is our name the game because why else? It was considered the very first zombie game.
Next week on the show, from the same team that brought us War of the Roses, War of the Vikings. Until next week, Barjo out.
Hex out.
Right, well, I guess everything goes back to normal now, Hex. We can clean up and,
No, Barjo, it's the apocalypse. The apocalypse is forever or until we rebuild society.
Really?
Yes.
What about games?
Well, we'll just have to invent our own games.
Hex! Quickly! I have completed it after many years. Basically what this game is, it's a grid-based game, it's turn-based, there's different classes on each side and they attack each other to take out each other's enemies and people. It's great.
I don't know, it just seems really familiar to me. What do you call it?
I call it Kaplunk. Do you want a game?
Sure, I mean,
No! Hex, quick, come here, sit down. This is a new game I've been working on for many years. It's a grid-based game, there's different classes and they attack each other.